Good morning and warm welcome to you all. I am Vaibhav, your host for today. Our topic for today is Rights of Women in India. It shall be taken by Ms. Sheetal Niwalkar. She shall be covering right to equal pay, dignity and decency in legal processes, right against workplace harassment, right against domestic violence, POSH, procedure, how and when to file a complaint with internal committee members, followed by question and answer session. Our agenda for today is virtual inauguration by Dr. Sundar Kataria, invoking the blessing of deity, chanting of Gayatri Mantra, introduction of speaker, presentation by Ms. Sheetal, question and answer session, and last closing session. About Sadgun Sangh. Sadgun Sangh conceived and led by Dr. Sundar Kataria, driven with a mission to elevate the quality, safety, and environmental awareness levels of industry. Sadgun Sangh is a series of educative, informative events aiming to illuminate professionals on possible solutions to current issues of industry and economy. Let's know more about Dr. Sundar Kataria. Designation and organization, Chairman and Managing Director, International Certification Services Private Limited. His academic qualifications are Doctorate in Business Management, followed by Mechanical Engineer experience, Rajasthan Atomic Power Project, India's first nuclear power plant, RAPP at Rawatbata, Kota, built by Indian engineers, worked as nuclear scientist for 11 years and successfully completed and commissioned the plant. Engineers India Limited, first batch of engineers to develop Bombay High offshore oil and gas fields, mega offshore complex platform, trunk and submarine pipelines, underwater inspection and indigenization oil and gas equipment, etc. Det Norsec Versatiles, world largest classification society, worked for 17 years at various capacity for the certification of fixed offshore installations, submarine pipelines, onshore projects and personnel qualification, underwater inspection divers. ICS, he is founder of India's first certification conformance assessment body established in the year 1999, provider of total quality solutions, certification of management system, ISO, inspection testing and training qualification of personnel. Achievements and awards of Dr. Kataria received Lifetime Achievement Award for the contribution for the corrosion technologies from NACE International by NIGIS under NACE USA. Social worker, protection of life, asset, environmental and safety. So now I request Dr. Kataria to please virtually inaugurate the session.
शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Please join us for the recitation of the Gayatri Mantra. Introduction of our today's keynote speaker, Ms. Sheetal Niwalkar. Designation and organization, assistant manager, system documentation. Her academic qualification, BA in sociology. Her area of specialization experience, 25 plus years of rich experience in management system, out of which 10 years of an on-ground experience pertaining to POSH Act, impaneled as an external member for over 100 companies across India since the inception of the POSH Act in 2014 till date, undergone extensive training under the said Act and its requirements and have handled complaints and conducted almost 50 plus investigations under the said Act, lead auditor for QMS, EMS, and consultant for QMS, EMS, FSMS, OSHAs, and other management systems in India and abroad. Also associated with labor law firm to conduct audits under various labor laws. Please welcome Sheetal ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, friends. Am I audible to everybody? So, welcome to the presentation on legal rights of women in India. Thereafter, we'll be taking a brief introduction on the POSH Act, and we'll be covering the question and answers later on. So, moving ahead, we will start with the presentation. So, just yesterday, we all witnessed a celebration in our office pertaining to International Women's Day. So once again, happy International Women's Day. So do you know what was the theme yesterday for yesterday's International Women's Day? The theme for 2024 is Inspire Inclusion, and the overarching theme in Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. This emphasizes the importance of creating an inclusive society and investing in women's empowerment. Also, to add to your knowledge, we also celebrate National Women's Day in India. So, as a mark of the birth anniversary of Sarojini Naidu, the Nightingale of India, 13th of February every year, it is celebrated as National Women's Day. To begin with our today's presentation, I would first like to just have a preface of what we are going to talk about. So, empowering women with knowledge about their rights and entitlements is crucial for fostering a fearless society where they can pursue their aspirations freely. By addressing the challenges women face at home and in society and collectively committing to gender equality, we can pave the way for a brighter and more inclusive future for all women. It is crucial for every woman to be aware of her rights and entitlements. Women's rights are not just legal concepts, but a powerful tool that empowers them to lead fulfilling lives. So before we begin with what are the important rights of Indian women, please note that in spite of varied and diversified culture, society system, and gender gaps prevailing in our country, India as a nation and its policymakers never lagged behind in implementing progressive thoughts by way of training, conducting awareness, and whenever required, by way of regulation. Thus, our country has given abundant rights to its citizens, especially women at large, to protect and address their interests, which we will see in the coming slides in today's webinar. So let's explore the important rights of Indian women, ensuring their lives they can live and with dignity, respect, and freedom. So these are the fundamental rights every woman should know. So what are the basic rights of women in India? These are a few of the rights taken up from the Constitution of India as well as from the legal process. So right against domestic violence, right against sexual harassment, right to equal pay, right to free legal aid, right to dignity and decency, right to save abortion, Dowry Prohibition Act, Equality Before Law, Maternity Benefit Act, Hindu Marriage Act, then the provision of Child Marriage Act, right to work, right against arrest at night, right against being stalked, right against dowry, right to maintenance, right to zero FIR, Equal Remuneration Act, Hindu Succession Act 1956, Protection Against Sexual Assaults, right of private defense, right to privacy, rights of women at workplace, and right to property. Out of these, we will not be covering all of them. I've just selected a few, 11 rights we can just discuss and give you a brief introduction on those rights. So let's move on to the first right that we will be discussing. So right to equal pay. According to the Equal Remuneration Act, women have got the right to receive equal pay for equal work. Discrimination based on gender in terms of salary, pay, or wages is prohibited. This empowers working women to demand and receive fair compensation compared to their male counterparts. So this is right to equal pay. The second right that we're going to discuss is right to dignity and decency in legal process. Now, what does this right say? In certain situations involved when a female is accused, okay, so she has got the right that any medical examination must be conducted by or in the presence of another woman, ensuring her right to dignity and decency is upheld. This provision safeguards women's privacy and ensures respectful treatment in legal process. So this is right to dignity and decency in legal process. The next right, against workplace harassment. Now this everybody is aware of. This act also we will be discussing in the future. Later on, I will be taking in detail about this particular Workplace Harassment Act. So the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act 2030 grants women the right to file complaints against any form of sexual harassment at their workplace. This act establishes an internal committee to address grievances, providing a legal framework for a safe working environment and provide justice to the aggrieved as per principles of natural justice. The next right is we will be discussing about domestic violence. Section 498 under the Indian Penal Code, the Indian Constitution protects women from domestic violence, including verbal, economic, emotional, and sexual abuse. Offenders can face non-bailable imprisonment in case they are, found guilty of their act, offering legal recourse for women facing violence within their household. So this act gives them reprise if they are facing violence within their household. Right to anonymity for sexual assault victims. This right gives or provides the woman to protect her privacy of sexual assault victims. Basically, women have got the right to record their statements alone before the district magistrate or in the presence of a female police officer. She can demand that she needs to record her statements before the district magistrate or in the presence of female officer. So this ensures anonymity during legal proceedings. Another right that she can avail is right to free legal aid. Female rape victims are entitled to free legal aid under the Legal Service Authorities Act which came into effect from 9th of November 1995. This provision ensures that women have access to take legal support and representation during challenging times. So they have got the facility of taking free legal aid during in case they have witnessed a rape. Right against indecent representation. What does this mean? When a woman is subjected to indecent representation, like through publications or writings or through paintings or talking about body shaming in any other manner, so it safeguards the woman from derogatory representation that may harm public morality. So she has got the right against indecent representation. There is an act also called as Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986. The next act we're going to talk about is right against stalking. This will be discussing also later in our when I talk about POSH Act. Section 354D of the Indian Penal Code enables legal action against individuals who stalk women through repeated personal interactions or electronic monitoring. This provision addresses the crime of stalking and ensures the safety of women. So under Section 354D, stalking is prohibited. The next right that we're going to talk about is right not to be arrested at night unless under exceptional circumstances with the order of the first-class magistrate. A woman cannot be arrested after sunset or before sunrise. The law also mandates that police interrogation must occur in the presence of a woman constable and family members or friends. So this is right not to be arrested at night. Then there is right to register virtual complaints. In case a woman feels that she does not want to physically go and or file a complaint, a woman can file virtual complaints through emails or written submissions sent to a police station from a registered postal address. So this facilitates reporting for those unable to physically visit a police station. The last act that we're going to discuss about is about the Maternity Benefits Act 1961. So working women have the privilege of taking maternity benefits during their work. So it's for the mothers who work during childbirth and in pre-childbirth stage. The Act mandates for a minimum 12 weeks of maternity leave to mothers. This was the older 12 weeks provided. But in the 2017 amendment of the Act, Maternity Benefit Act, this 12 weeks was increased to a maximum of 26 weeks. So now she can avail a maximum of 26 weeks of maternity leave for giving birth to the child. So before I move on to these were the rights, I've just taken a few of them, as I said, around 11 rights of women. Before I move on to the next slide that we're going to talk about, as I said, we'll be taking on the POSH Act or the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act. I would like to share with you a video.
Wait, 1 second.
Please go. I would like you all to please see the video first, and then we will go on with the presentation. So I just request a few minutes. So I'll just share the video with you. 1 minute.
According to a global review by United Nations Women in 2013, 35% of women and girls worldwide experience either physical or sexual, intimate partner violence, or non-partner sexual violence. Violence against women continues to be a major obstacle to women's self-realization and violates her right to a life of dignity. Crime Bureau statistics show that violence against women still pervades homes, workplaces, and public spaces. In the same year, it was revealed that 72.5% of women face sexual harassment and violence in the city of Guwahati. Such violence is not random violence, in which the victims happen to be women and girls. The risk factor is being female. In other words, the roots of such violence are gender-based. Registered cases are only the tip of the iceberg, as most cases are not reported due to fear and stigma. Recently, certain progressive laws and policies have been adopted by the government to prevent and redress violence against women. What is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is offensive conduct faced by women and includes any unwanted, unwelcome, and unlawful behavior that has sexual connotations. Such behaviors includes physical, verbal, and non-verbal actions and gestures, such as unwanted name-calling, patting, stroking, or flashing private parts, smacking lips, leering, elevator eyes, making sexually explicit telephone calls, emails, SMSs, MMSs, letters, unwanted invites for dates, and so on. Given the alarming situation, government and other institutional bodies have adopted progressive legislations and have modified existing laws. India enacted the Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, which brought in several changes to the Indian Penal Code in relation to sexual offences on women. It defines and penalizes sexual harassment, which include Section 294, singing, reciting, or uttering any obscene song, ballad, or words in or near any public place that can lead to imprisonment of a term, which may extend to 3 months, or with fine, or both. Section 354 and 509. Assault, or use of criminal force of any kind with the intent to outrage a woman's modesty or dignity, like attempts to physically attack, sexually molest, and verbally abuse. It can lead to imprisonment up to 2 years, or be liable to pay a fine, or both. Section 354B. Anyone who assaults or uses criminal force on any woman with the intention of disrobing or forcing her to disrobe. It entails imprisonment for not less than 3 to 7 years, or will be liable to pay a fine, or both. Section 354C. Voyeurism, like watching, capturing, or disseminating images of women engaging in a private act. Such offence will lead to an imprisonment of not less than 1 to 3 years, and up to 7 years for repeated offenders. Section 354D. Stalking, meaning following a woman physically or electronically, even if she objects. It is punishable with an imprisonment of up to 3 years and 5 years for repeated offenders. Sexual harassment of women at the workplace. Sexual harassment against women can take place anywhere, at home, workplace, or in public. When such conduct takes place at the workplace, it is termed sexual harassment of women at the workplace. Many women are often forced to leave their jobs and workplace to avoid sexual harassment. It results to considerable losses to both individuals and institutions. Acts of shop can be categorized into 2. Quid pro quo, meaning this for that, which is sexual harassment caused by those in authority or power in an employment. It relates to the abuse of authority, resulting in tangible or noticeable employment-related action. Hostile work environment is when the abuse does not result in tangible employment action, but creates an unfriendly work environment, making a woman employee feel uncomfortable or threatened. When a woman faces sexual harassment at the workplace, she can make a complaint to the following: Internal Complaints Committee, ICC. It is mandatory for each workplace with 10 or more employees to have an ICC in place, with the senior woman employee as the presiding officer, at least 2 employees familiar with legal knowledge, social work, women's issues, and a third-party representative from an NGO or an activist committed to the cause of women, especially the issue of sexual harassment. 50% members of the committee should be women. Local Complaints Committee, LCC, for organizations with less than 10 employees. Domestic workers and those not having ICC may complain to the LCC at the district level, formed by the government. One can also check the official website of the district administration for LCC. Most of the women who experience sexual harassment do not file complaints due to fear, ignorance, and honor. Research shows that simply ignoring the behavior is ineffective and may even encourage such offensive behavior. Sexual harassment at the workplace is not about sexual attraction. It is about power dynamics at the workplace. Take action. Report now. Sexual harassment is a crime.
So this was a brief video about the Act requirements and an awareness to create about what the Act actually wants the employees to know about. Moving ahead, now I'll be taking a presentation on Sexual Harassment Act requirements. So today we'll be talking about a brief information on the Act requirements and how to file a complaint with the internal committee members in case of any issues pertaining to sexual harassment. We will begin with how did the Act or how did what were the earlier constitutions or remedies available pertaining to POSH Act. So in 1948, there was a Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Then came in 1950 the Indian Constitution, wherein Article 14 and 15, which talks about right to equality, and Article 21 talks about right to life and personal liberty. In 1979, CEDAW came up with which was ratified by India on 25th of June 1993, which talks about Convention on Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Then the Supreme Court judgment in the year 1997, which was passed by, which was Guidelines for Protection of Women Against Sexual Harassment, which is also popularly known as Vishaka Guidelines. In the year 1997, Vishaka Guidelines are already there in place. And then after that, in 2013, the Government of India passed a new law on sexual harassment of women at workplace, PPR Act 2013. So before going to the Act of 2013, let's talk about a little bit of an information on Vishaka Guidelines. How did Vishaka Guidelines came into existence? In the year 1992, there was a case which was filed by Bhavni Devi. She was a social worker in Rajasthan and was working for an NGO against child marriage. She was brutally gang raped by a number of upper caste men in her area, and because she tried to stop a child marriage. Bhavni Devi was determined to get justice and lodged a case against the offenders, but however, the accused were acquitted by a trial court. Nobody was even interested in taking her FIR because of the power the upper caste people had and who had gang raped her. So later on, a group of NGOs came together, women-led NGOs came together, and they collectively filed a public interest litigation called as PIL with the Supreme Court, and it was named as the Vishaka. And the Supreme Court later on, they came up with the guidelines called the Vishaka Guidelines, wherein they won this case. That's how in 1997, Vishaka Guidelines were brought in, by the Supreme Court. And these guidelines were to be adopted by each and every organization in India, but they, mere being only guidelines, did not have any authenticity or did not have any power, like a legal to be adopted by each and every organization. So after 10 years, almost after 10 years, everybody is aware of the horrendous case that happened in Delhi, the Nirbhaya case, wherein then the government actually woke up and then they came up with a law or an act which finally was called as Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, PPR Act 2013. 2013 is the year wherein the act came for implementation. It came on 9th of December 2013 for implementation, for everyone to be, for all organizations to adopt the act in the year 2013. Now, what is the applicability of the act? This act is applicable to the whole of India. It covers each and every woman at the workplace. Even a visiting woman or a sales girl or a female candidate coming in for an interview at the workplace are also covered under the act. So any woman at the workplace, and she's subjected to any kind of a sexual harassment or sexual abuse, she can take protection under this act. Now, in the act name, you have seen that there is a PPR. What is that PPR meaning? So the first P stands for prevention. The prevention onus is given to the employer or to the organization who is going to implement the act. So prevention in terms of prevention of sexual harassment incidences at the workplace. So to prevent incidences of sexual harassment at workplace, they need to have a policy in place and have an internal committee in place, right? So that is the prevention part. Then the next P is the prohibition. The prohibition is, of course, through by law or decree or order. So the act is there to prohibit such kinds of incidences. And then in spite of prevention and prohibition, still there are any complaints coming up, then how to redress? So the act also gives you the redressal forum or the redressal method to handle complaints and to render justice to the aggrieved women and punish the guilty. So PPR is prevention, prohibition, redressal. Now there are certain definitions given in the act. The act is available for you if you want. Anybody wants to go through the act requirements, they can. It is readily available on Google. You can just search for Sexual Harassment Act and you will get all the information on that. So there are certain definitions under the act. So we'll be discussing a few of them which are more relevant and you need to know about it. So who is an aggrieved woman? An aggrieved woman is also known as the complainant. So a woman, the woman who has been subjected to a sexual harassment incident, she is termed as an aggrieved woman. Now, the woman definition is who is a woman in this particular act is a working woman, a visiting at a workplace, or even a student. So under working, if you see, the woman can be under regular, temporary, ad hoc, and she can even be a daily wager. She can work for wages, she can work on voluntary basis, she can be employed directly or she can be indirectly or through an agent, she can be employed. She can be on contractual basis, she can be a probationary, she can be a trainee, she can be an apprentice, any other name that you call. A woman subjected to sexual harassment at the workplace, she can take reprise under the said act. Even a domestic worker at her home who comes to work, because for her, the domestic worker, the home is her workplace. So even if she is subjected to any kind of sexual harassment at her workplace, which is a domestic home, she can also take reprise under this particular act. She's also been given the remedy to take protection under this act. So this is the definition of a woman who can file a complaint against under the said act. Now, coming to the definition of what is a workplace, you need to understand what is a workplace. So, a workplace is defined as any place visited by an employee arising out of and during the course of employment, including transportation provided by the employer for undertaking such journey. Okay, so a workplace can be any place where there is a working relationship. In addition to your office, it also says that a workplace of an external client is also considered as a workplace. Premises of other organizations is also considered as a workplace. Hotels, restaurants, and other venues during official functions and events. If anything happens during functions and events sponsored by the company or the organization, that is also to be considered as a workplace. Workstation of other employees, lifts in the building, restrooms, toilets, corridors, canteens, cafeteria, entertainment zone. Incident can happen anywhere, provided it is in the workplace area. It will be considered as a workplace. Now, the organizations, it is given in the left-hand side of the slide, all government organizations will be also, they have to implement this particular act. All companies, small, medium, large, all types of companies can also have to implement this particular act. All corporations, even hospitals, educational institutions, nursing homes, sports facility, farms, cooperative societies, service providers, NGOs, house. This all will be considered as a workplace. There's also something called as an extended workplace. Now, what is an extended workplace? Workplace is now where you come and sit in the office and do your work, right? So that is considered as a workplace. That is official duties that you carry out at your workplace. Now, what is an extended workplace? Off-site duty. That is the marketing people go on for their duties for marketing purpose. They have to go outside the office area, right, to meet their clients. So outbound trainings, we conduct trainings within. Now, supposing the company conducts training outside anywhere, maybe in a hotel or maybe in a training institute. So anything which is official, which falls under official duty, and there something happens and undue incidents happen, it will be considered as an extended workplace. So training sessions, travel for office purpose, then even transportation provided. Now, some companies provide transportation to and fro, home drop facility for their employees. So if during that transportation, any mishap happens with a woman or anybody tries to, misbehave with a woman during the transportation provided by the organization, that will be considered as a extended workplace. Now, who is a respondent under the said act? Respondent is the one who is being against who the complaint is made. Is called as a respondent. So, who is an aggrieved woman? Aggrieved woman is a complainant who is subjected to sexual harassment, and respondent is the one against who the complaint is made. Okay, you will not call him guilty or accused, because unless and until he is proved of his actions, of his misactions, he cannot be called as a accused. So he is termed as respondent. So against who a complaint is made, he is termed as respondent. Now, who is an employer? An employer is the you can say the owners of an organization. Okay, so if it is a government body, so workplace of the authority who is at the higher position will be considered as the employer. In a private workplace, like a private company, the owners or the board of directors will be considered as the employer. In a dwelling house, it will be the owner of the flat or the house. He will be considered as the employer. In certain cases, there are branch offices across maybe in India or abroad, or they have. So the head of the department, like a CEO, who's been given the rights of full rights to handle that particular branch, he will be considered as an employer. And the person responsible for management, supervision, or control, he'll be also considered as an employer. Now, what are the duties of an employer? The first, the PPR that when I discussed with you, the prevention part. So prevention part is to have a policy document in place. So the organization needs to establish or have a policy document as per the Act's requirements, and it has to be circulated to all employees. The employees has to be made aware of the policy document. Then display notice and penal provisions. Now in this particular the video that I shared with you, there were certain criminal provisions shown, those Indian Penal Code sections shown. So you have, it is mandatory to display a notice on and the penal provisions, or at least make the employees aware of the penal provisions through these kinds of awareness sessions. Then frame and implement a redressal procedure in case there is a case or a or a complaint coming into the internal committee, how to redress that particular complaint and how to take it further. That procedure needs to be documented. So it is already there. It has to be made available in the policy document itself. And then communicate the list of internal committee members with the contact details. It has to be made available, or the employees have to be made aware of the who are the committee members to whom they can come and make a complaint or file a complaint. Then conduct periodic sensitization programs for all employees and create awareness. So creating awareness about the act is very, very important, because they need to know and understand exactly what sexual harassment and what falls under sexual harassment and what are the requirements. So then correct remedy can be passed on to the complainant or to the recipient. Then periodic skill training workshops needs to be conducted for internal committee members, since having a policy document and then not sharing it and nobody is aware about it is not advisable. So internal committee members, whoever are the internal committee members, they also need to undergo a skill building training pertaining to how to conduct a fair investigation when a complaint comes to them. So they need to be also trained on. There are specific guidelines, there are specific timelines relating to the act, where the internal committee members needs to know and be aware of while conducting an investigation. So they also need to go on skill building training under the said act. This is the responsibility of the employer, that they have to provide for its employees. Now coming to what is sexual harassment. Now in the video that I showed to you, you must have got a fair idea as to what exactly sexual harassment means. So the definition of sexual harassment is any behavior or act which is unwelcomed, unwanted, made a woman feel uncomfortable, and was unsolicited for. Okay, so any behavior which was unwelcomed, unwanted, she's uncomfortable about it, and it was not wanted. But the tagline over here is that that behavior has to have a sexual connotation or a meaning to it. If that particular behavior has got no sexual meaning to it, is not sexual harassment. So the behavior has to have a sexual connotation to it. Now I'll be explaining to you what does that sexual connotation mean. So any behavior or act which is unwelcome, unwanted, but has a sexual connotation is sexual harassment under the said act. Now there are two categories under the said act and three types. Now the first category is called as quid pro quo category. It's a Latin word meaning quid pro quo means this for that. This for that meaning a person in a position or a high position or supervisory position or a management position asks for sexual favors in return for something. Like you give me this, I give you that. So quid pro quo, meaning this for that. It's called quid pro quo type of category of sexual harassment. Then this is basically like for both sides there is something gain, mutually beneficial gain. Like supposing for a raise in a salary or raise in your say position, I'll give you this, you give me this, so it's something like a barter deal. So this type of or this category of sexual harassment is called quid pro quo. The next category is called hostile work environment. Now, hostile work environment is when in an organization, employees work hand on hand with each other. Okay, there are employees. Now, the employees working together create such a work environment for the victim that she feels unsafe working in that environment. Who create that environment? The people working around her. So that type of work environment is called hostile work environment. So in this, there are three types. What are the three types? There could be verbal type of sexual harassment. There could be non-verbal type of sexual harassment, or there could be physical type of sexual harassment. Now, in verbal type of sexual harassment, what comes? Sexual comments about appearance, which are sexual in nature, vulgar and explicit language or questions used. So verbal type, speaking, you talk sexual language. Okay. Non-verbal means giving inappropriate gifts of a sexual nature, suggestive notes, nude or suggested photos or materials. The non-verbal type could also be in a person looking at you, staring. The way he stares at you, also that look might give you the woman knows how a person is looking at you. Staring from up to down or from top to up. That comes into non-verbal type of sexual harassment. And the other is through emails and texting. Now virtual type of sexual harassment has become very, very common, and we get a lot of complaints also about virtual type of sexual harassment. During the COVID times, there were many cases which I've handled, which came pertaining to non-verbal, that is virtual type of sexual harassment. And the lastly, it is called physical. Physical is through touch. Everybody understands through touch. So touching, rubbing, brushing in a sexual manner, uninvited massages, uninvited hugging or kissing. It falls under physical type of sexual harassment. So you're coming back to the definition of what is sexual harassment. Any behavior which was unwanted, which could be verbal type, it could be non-verbal type, it could be physical type, which was unwanted, unsolicited for, made the woman feel uncomfortable, and had a sexual connotation to it, is sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is of two types: quid pro quo, meaning this for that, and hostile work environment. Now coming ahead with the formation of or constitution of the internal committee under the said act. Now, what is the mandatory requirement? Any company or any organization having 10 or more employees in their organization or workplace mandatorily have to form a minimum four member committee. So out of that 4 members, the first member is called as a presiding officer or the chairperson. She has to be a female only. A female could be at the senior level, or a woman who has knowledge about handling or taking, they have handled women related issues. So she should be having that kind of an experience. Okay, so the presiding officer is the first member. The second member can be another woman from the workplace only. She can be from any department. The third member can be a male member. And the fourth member has to be a member from the NGO or a person who has knowledge about handling cases of women or has experience in social work. So a minimum 4 member committee members have to be formed by any organization having 10 or more employees working with them. Irrespective of whether male, female, 10 employees are there, they have to have a 4 member committee formed. This committee is valid for 3 years. In the sense, their tenure or their membership as committee members is for 3 years. Every 3 years, this committee has to be changed. New committee members will come on board. Okay, so every 3 years, the committee has to change. Now, also there's another requirement that out of the 4 members, 2 2 members can be female, 2 members can be male, or 3 members can be female and 1 member can be male. So majority of the members have to be females in the committee. This is the mandatory requirement as per the Act. If the committee is not formed in this manner, what I've explained, it is considered as a non-compliance and you can be penalized for it. Now, what is the responsibility of the IC members? First of all, admit complaints and reports of sexual harassment. Even if the complaint is not falling within the purview of the said Act or the Sexual Harassment Act, their main responsibility is to hear out the complainant and then decide whether it is coming under the Sexual Harassment Act or it has to be another remedy has to be given to her. So admit complaints, hear out the complaint of the complainant. Then the second responsibility is in case if the complaint falls under sexual harassment, there is a conciliation process which needs to be conducted at the request of the complainant only. If the conciliation process is not requested by the complainant, you cannot carry out conciliation proceedings. Okay. In case the complainant does not want a conciliation to be done, then a full-fledged inquiry has to be conducted by the internal committee. Okay, the inquiry proceedings has to be in accordance with the principles of natural justice. So this is what I meant is when the internal committee members have to be trained on how to conduct an inquiry. This is where the internal committee members will be trained on how to conduct a full-fledged inquiry. Then the committee has got the right to ask from the party to the case any documentation, production of any documentation relating to the case, any records, or request for their appearance to depose in front of the inquiry committee or the internal committee members during the inquiry stage. So this is a civil right because the internal committee member acts as a mini civil court. They have been given the civil court rights to enforce production of documents, records, and ask the people, that is the complainant, the respondent, and the witnesses, to come before the committee and give their statements. Okay. Then the other responsibility of the committee member is to, after the inquiry proceedings are completed, write an inquiry report and according to whatever the outcome of the inquiry has taken place, make appropriate recommendations to the employer. Here, the internal committee members need to understand is that they cannot take any action. The action responsibility is given only to the employer. The committee can only take a complaint, investigate into the complaint, make a report, and lastly, make a recommendation as to what action needs to be initiated as per the inquiry conductor. So the internal committee can only recommend actions, not take actions. And finally, at the end of the year, every year, the committee needs to file an annual report. This is a mandatory requirement or the compliance under the said Act that every year in the month of January, an annual report has to be submitted to the district collector's office. Just coming to how to handle a sexual harassment case at the workplace. This is basically in the point of view of the complainant who is being subjected to a sexual harassment, what she needs to do or how she needs to file a complaint if she has a complaint of sexual harassment at the workplace. There are certain timelines as per the Act which everybody needs to understand and adhere to. Okay. Now here it says that the complainant, who has to be a female in this case because the Act itself says that it is sexual harassment of women at workplace. So only women related complaints will be entertained by the internal committee. So the complainant has to be a female, it cannot be a male as per the act. Okay, so the complainant has to submit in writing only to the internal committee members. Okay. Verbal complaints are not entertained because verbal complaints will not be taken up by the committee. Only written complaints have to be made. Okay. Then there's a timeline as to when can you file a complaint. Now, supposing a female is having an issue with her, say now we are in the month of March. Say in the month of January, she faced an issue and she wants to come and make a complaint now in the month of March. So her timeline is that within 3 months of the incident happening with her, she has to file a complaint. Another 3 months can be given to her provided she gives a valid reason as to why she delayed in making a complaint, and the justification has to be agreed by the committee members. So 3 plus 3 months, that is ideally 6 months, are given to the complainant to come and file a complaint. Even if 1 day extends or 1 day becomes extra out of the 6 months, that complaint will not be taken, or the internal committee has got the right to reject that complaint. Okay. So whatever incident has taken place with the female, she has to come within 3 months ideally, or another 3 months with a valid reason for delay. Written, the complaint has to be only in writing. So this is the first criteria which the complainant needs to know. Okay. Then there are timelines when the committee ascertains that the case is falling under the particular act. The internal committee has got 7 days time to send that complaint letter to the respondent, asking him to reply back with his response to that complaint. He has been given 7 days time. Okay, that 7 days time written response, the respondent has to send it back to the internal committee members. Within this time frame, the internal committee members has got the time for conciliation. Now, conciliation happens only at the behest or at the request of the complainant. Only if she requests for, she can the internal committee can ask for conciliation. In conciliation also, both parties will be taken into consideration, and if they meet up with an agreed agreement, then only conciliation has happened. This conciliation happens only before starting an inquiry. It cannot happen when an inquiry starts and then the complainant says, I want to go in for conciliation. No. So this conciliation process happens only before starting an inquiry, full-fledged inquiry. So if the conciliation happens, the case closes there only, no further investigation needs to be carried out. But if the complainant says that I do not want to go in for a conciliation, I want an inquiry to be conducted, then the inquiry proceeding starts. The internal committee members are given 90 days time to complete their inquiry from the date of the complaint received. Supposing today the internal committee receives a complaint, they have been given 90 days time to complete the inquiry along with their inquiry report and recommendations. So within 90 days time, the inquiry has to be finished. Then when the inquiry is finished, the day inquiry is finished, from that day, another 10 days is given to the internal committee members to write a report. Okay, and then submitted to the employer. The employer is given 60 days time to take action on the recommendations given by the employee, the internal committee members. So these are certain timelines under the act which the organization and the committee members needs to adhere to. And also the complainant needs to understand what are the timelines and how much time it takes for once the complaint she's given, and what are the other and how many days her complaint can be given reprise to with justification. In case with the outcome of the committee or the inquiry report, the complainant or the respondent is not happy with the result or with the action initiated or the action taken by the employer, then they have been given another 90 days time to make an appeal. Okay, so these are the timelines under the said act. This was the flow chart which I just explained to you. So this is the same thing as I explained to you right now. Now, during the pendency of inquiry, there are certain rights given to the aggrieved woman. When I say aggrieved woman, you should be understanding that is the complainant. So the internal committee can recommend to the employer during the pendency of an inquiry. Now, what is that? What is that right availed or given to the aggrieved woman? The woman can ask for a transfer during the period of pendency, that is the 90 days time given to the internal committee to conduct the inquiry. She can ask for her own transfer or the transfer of the respondent to any other workplace. She can be granted leave up to a period of 3 months, because 3 months means 90 days till the time the inquiry will take place. She can be granted any other relief to the aggrieved woman as may be reasonably solicited by the aggrieved woman. It has to be agreed by the employer and the internal committee members as well. Now, this leave that she will be granted, you need to take into consideration is that this leave is in addition to all the other leaves that she is entitled for. Okay, so this will not be that this leave will be in addition to other leaves that she is entitled for. Now, what if you during the inquiry stage, the internal committee finds out that the complaint made by the complainant is false, or she is made false and malicious complaint. So she will also undergo the same punishment, or she will also strict disciplinary action can be initiated against her if she is giving false complaint or misrepresentation of facts. She will be given the same punishment as the respondent would have got. So also the employees need to understand here is that please don't get into false accusations, because it's the same punishment or under strict disciplinary action under the service rules of the companies. The disciplinary action will be taken against for false accusations as well. Now, there are certain prohibitions of publication of contents of the inquiry proceeding during the inquiry proceedings that take place. First of all, when the complaint comes to the internal committee, the confidentiality has to be maintained by all the people, whoever will be party to the case, that is the complainant, the respondent, the internal committee members, the witnesses, whoever will be party to the case, they have to maintain strict confidentiality about the complaint received. So under the Right to Information Act in 2005, following cannot be communicated or made known to public, press or media: the identity, address of the aggrieved woman, the respondents or the witnesses. So you cannot make the information leak to any of the public, press or media. Any information related to the consideration, inquiry proceedings and recommendations of the IC, because it has to be strictly confidential, and the action taken by the employer also cannot be disclosed to anybody other than the complainant and the respondent. Now, report submission. As I explained earlier, that the internal committee members and the employer has the responsibility to file an annual report every year, every calendar year, that is in the month of January for the previous year. Now, for the year 2023, the organization needs to file there is a set format of 5 questions, which the company needs to fill up and get it signed by the internal committee chairperson and CC marked to the employer and submitted to the district collector's office of its region. Okay, so this is a mandatory requirement and the compliance under the said act. Now, what is the penalty for non-compliance? Now, here where the employer fails to comply to constitute an internal committee, as I said that the internal committee has to be formed as per the manner that I explained, that 4-member committee has to be there, out of which the majority of the committee members have to be women, and there has to be an external member from an external body, that is an NGO or a social worker. Okay. Then to take action on the inquiry report, if the company fails or the employer fails to take action on the inquiry report submitted by the intern committee, it is non-compliance. Then if the employer or the organization fails to punish false malicious complaint and false evidence is given, and to include information in the annual report, these are the non-compliances under the Act. The employer shall be penalized with rupees 50,000. Okay, and for repeated offences, it is double the amount, twice the punishment for repeated offences, and cancellation of the license or withdrawal of or non-renewal or approval or cancellation of registration by the local authority. So these are the non-compliance penalties. We have almost come to the end of the session. Yeah, so now we'll come into the post-inquiry session. How to file a complaint and how to make a complaint. Now, this is basically for the complainant who wants to file a complaint, how she should be making a complaint and submitting it to the internal committee members. Now, as I said, the complaint has to be made only in writing. So when you make the complaint in writing, how it should be, okay? The incident that she has faced or she is subject to has to be very descriptive with dates, timings, the name of the respondent, and the working relationship in the sense whether it is within your organization or outside your organization. Then the dates, if there are multiple incidences, each incident has to, on what date that incident happened, what time it happened, where it happened, who was the respondent. These all details have to be part of your complaint writing. Okay. The complaint can be emailed also to the internal committee members. Then the complaint letter has to be supported with documents like if there are any evidences along with it, there are any letters or emails or photographs, or there are any pictures, or there are any WhatsApp messages, there are any screenshots. So these all should be attached along with your complaint letter and submitted to the internal committee members. Okay. So this is how you should be making a complaint and submitting it to the internal committee members. Or in case if the complaint coming to the internal committee members do not have all these things written in the complaint, you can ask the complainant to again rewrite and submit it in the form you want how the complainant to write a letter. Okay, you can ask them to rewrite it. Conciliation process, I already explained to you. This conciliation process can only happen before initiating an inquiry, not after the inquiry. The conciliation also you need to take into account is that the aggrieved woman can only make a request for conciliation. Without her request, you cannot ask for a conciliation. Then it becomes that you're forcing the complainant to make a conciliation because the internal committee does not want to carry out a full-fledged inquiry. So it becomes like that. So when an aggrieved woman gives her consent to proceed for conciliation, then only proceed for conciliation. Okay. The conciliation cannot be initiated by respondent or any other person. It has to be initiated only by the complainant. Also, there are certain do's and don'ts during conciliation. The conciliation cannot, the complainant cannot ask for any monetary, reprise. That okay, I made a complaint. Now I have gone through so much. I need 50,000 rupees for conciliation. He has to give me no. There will be no monetary reprise under conciliation. All right. Now, as I said, after the inquiry report is submitted to the complainant and to the respondent, they have got a right to make an appeal in case they are unsatisfactory with the outcome of the inquiry report. If the complainant is not happy, she can make an appeal. If the respondent is not happy, he can also make an appeal within 90 days time from the date of submitting the inquiry report with the recommendations to them. Before I end, I think so I've almost come to the end of the session. Now, before I come and end, here are a few things that you need to understand and to ensure that the rights are protected of women. So be informed. Educate yourself about your rights, the laws that protect you, and the resources available to seek help. Stay updated on any changes in legislation to ensure that you are well prepared to defend your rights. So be informed and educated about yourself all the time. Okay? And speak up. You need to speak up for yourself. If you encounter any form of discrimination, harassment, or violence, do not hesitate to speak up or raise your voice against injustice. And let others know that you won't tolerate any violation of your rights. Okay? Then seek support in case you want to seek support. If you face challenges in asserting your rights, reach out for support from your family, friends, support groups. There are also organizations who are dedicatedly helping women who are in distress. Like there are certain NGOs formed, we can take there or seek support from them. Then document incidents is very, very important. That if you face or experience any form of abuse, keep a record of incidences, including dates, times, and details. Documentation can be valuable evidence when you take legal action. And report violations. Report any violations of your rights to the relevant authority. Any illegal acts should not be tolerated, and reporting them is a step forward to seeking justice. And lastly, encourage and advocate for rights of women around you and encourage others also to do the same by creating a supportive and inclusive environment. So, encourage others to be supportive and inclusive and also collectively work towards a society where everybody or everyone feels safe working in an environment. Right? So, by this, I end my today's presentation. If there are any queries or any questions to be asked, you are all free to ask me. Are there any questions? Anybody has any questions? You can put it in the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and ask questions. Or anything not understood? Are there any questions? Doctor, sir, you have any questions, sir? You can unmute yourself and ask question. So you need to unmute. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Yes,
Can
sir.
I
Yes,
can
sir,
I
yes,
go
sir.
ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Very good afternoon, and my compliments. And you have covered the subject very well, starting from the beginning to end. What are the acts and how is this? How the woman right can be protected? That's very good. I have
Thank
few
you, sir.
basic questions which you can jot down and you can reply.
Okay, sir.
Now, that when we say woman, does it also cover the child labor woman?
So for child labor, there is another act in place which is called the POXO Act, wherein refers to 18 and below children. There's another act called POXO Act, which covers child abuse and child related sexual related harassments.
Yeah.
There's a
And when
separate act.
Yeah, and when we say woman,
Yes, sir.
what age you start? Is it adult woman
Adult
or
woman. Because see, this
yeah,
act particularly is only for workplace related harassment. So when you say workplace related harassment, is that, of course, naturally it will be 18 and above, because the ideal age for a woman to work, I mean, in India, it is 18 and above. 16 and above, yes, but 18 and above, right? So the act name itself says sexual harassment of women at workplace. So when I describe the definition of women at a workplace, it covers each and every woman at the workplace. Need not be that she is working for an organization. As I said, even a woman coming in for, or a female coming in for a interview at the workplace, and maybe, for God forbid, maybe the HR person later on, tries to be pally with her and tries to get friendly with her and ask her to go out with her. That is also considered as sexual harassment, and she can file a complaint of sexual harassment under the said act. So she need not be working for that organization. She's just come here for an interview purpose at that particular environment. So the moment she steps into the organizational premises, she's covered under the Sexual Harassment Act. It can be any woman. It can be a trainee, it can be a probationer, person coming for an interview, person coming for sales purpose. For that
Yeah.
matter, woman is considered that. For that matter, even a perpetrator can be anybody come walking into your organization. For example, a courier boy comes in, or nowadays Zomato people come inside the premises. They misbehave, or they pass a certain silly comment, or a sexually framed comment to any of the receptionists or to the person. I'm just giving you an example. That can also be formed as a part of sexual harassment. So how will she file a complaint if the Zomato fellow has passed a comment? Zomato works for Zomato. That is an organization. That organization also needs to form an internal committee.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
this is how the process is.
Yeah. And you have also covered the students. So
Students,
student,
yes.
basically, we are talking the college student, not
College students who come in for as trainees to your organization. They come in for 3 months purpose, 6 months purpose.
Hmm.
When they come into your as an apprentice, they come into your organization just for a project purpose.
Now, another thing which is practical, if you see, a lot of things goes unnoticed and not bother at all, and women are abused at the workplace. If you see NGOs, associations, societies, and also political parties, which because of authority, the things does not come to the limelight, and that who is a woman is there,
Sir,
she
actually, what
definitely
has happened?
suffers a lot.
Sorry for the interruption.
So,
Actually, what has happened is that, as I said, even the governmental organizations, they also need to form an internal committee, because there is this NCW. You must be knowing about National Commission of Women. Actually, the National Commission of Women are also the Ministry of National Commission of Women are also a part of the formation of this particular act. In case, even if the woman does not want to file a complaint with the internal committee, they have got another reprise where they can go to the National Commission of Women Ministry. There is a she box over there. They can file a complaint there. So every organization, whether it is governmental, non-governmental, private, semi whatever, all organizations have this act is applicable. So political parties, as you say, so they also they are also abided, or they have to have this act implemented at their place as well, which is actually the lacunas which we find in the last 10 years, even after the act has been implemented in 2013, and now we are in 2024. 10 years have passed, but still, like, the awareness amongst is not there. Very few organizations, or like, it is not actually being implemented everywhere. So that strict implementation is still lacking for this particular act. Well, it really needs to be. And for grave types of abuses, sexual harassment cases, like there is this criminal penal code, or the Indian penal code, which they need to take a reprise of. The internal committee members or the organizations can only take up to a certain case. If it is a criminal proceeding or if it is a rape victim or there is a molestation happening, these cases will only be taken up by the Indian Penal Code. They have to go and make an FIR. This cannot be handled by the internal committee members.
Okay. Another thing, which question, sorry, I'm taking a lot of questions.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Good, you're asking questions.
No, you have also a provision for the appeal panel.
Yes, sir.
Now, is the appeal panel is the internal panel or because the internal committee is there? Now, appeal is a independent appeal panel or what is the structure
The
and how
appeal,
it can be extended to that one if I am
yes.
not happy about outcome of the internal committee?
Yes, sir.
And,
Now,
what should I do?
the responsibility of the employer and the internal committee finishes once the report is submitted to the complainant and the respondent along with the actions to be initiated. Okay, the responsibility finishes there. Now, the appeal mechanism is what? They have got 90 days time, the complainant or the respondent, then they have to go to either to the labor court or they can go to the district magistrate. The labor court is the ideal where they can take the prize for appeals. Because once, as I said, the inquiry, the complaint comes to the internal committee, the committee conducts the inquiry, then the committee makes recommendations, it gives the recommendations are submitted to the employer takes actions over it. Once that is done, the responsibility of the internal committee and the employer finishes there.
Okay, thank you. I think some more people may have questions, so let them.
Yes, anybody else has questions? Any other questions? Anybody else has questions or shall we close the session? Just say yes or something, then we can close. Is it okay to close the session? So if there are no questions, then we will close this presentation. And thank you very much for your patient listening, and I hope I was informative and I could share some information and create some kind of awareness pertaining to the Act and the rights of women in India. Thank you so much.
Our next, thank you, Sheetal ma'am, for explaining topic in simplifying way. So our next session is on 16th of March. ICS is pleased to provide you all its research and development, integrated management system, QMS, EMS, and OHSS, excellence in education management, ISO made easy in Gujarati, Marathi, Telugu, and Hindi. For reading any of the above book, please contact Ms. Sushma Tendulkar on the given contact details. Feedback form. Please register on www.sadgunsang.org and go in your login and give your valued feedback to us. So thank you, Sheetal ma'am. Thank you all the participants and delegates for the today's Sadgun Sang. And now it's time to officially close the session. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.